Hello everybody, ciao a tutti, welcome to Art with Miss B. This is my third video and it's gonna be the last practice specifically focused on lines, which doesn't mean that we are not gonna use lines anymore. We use them so many other times, but the focus will switch to other element. If you didn't watch my second and my first video, I highly recommend you to do so. In the first video, I introduce myself and what is this channel is about. And I will do the first practice. I did the first practice about lines. Then there is a second practice when we did the two different type of design, just using lines and using two different techniques of coloring, color a pencil and markers. Today we're gonna just stretch this practice about lines a little more. We're gonna create like a little more complicated, I wouldn't say complicated, but a different type of design. And specifically, I think that I will just show a very simplified landscape, which is also a very good practice for mostly beginner, just to and intermediate students. For the beginner students, just to understand how we can build a landscape that makes sense on our paper and use the space that we have available in a balanced way. And for intermediate, to review this type of like rules behind doing landscape. But we are going to add a little twist, because instead to color with, conventional and traditional techniques, we are going to use the lines that we study in the second and in the first video, and we are going to combine them all together and see what happened on the paper. This is a good practice and a good exercise to review the different type of lines, what kind of patterns we can have if using a line versus another type of lines. And then for what concerns the coloring, we can actually use anything that you have available today. You can use crayons, you can use color pencil, you can use markers. I will probably just create some of the lines directly with the markers, and I will show you what I mean during the practice. Once again, this practice is for all levels and all age, and if you are homeschool students, if you are a parent of a homeschool student, remember, just like it would make sense for your kids to start from video 1, video 2, and now video 3, just because I'm building the foundation of a fine art curriculum exactly the same way, more or less, exactly the same way that I do in school. So I'm gonna switch the camera to a document camera so you can hear my voice and see my hands, and we can do this beautiful, fun practice all together. Here we are. Today I am still using a regular piece of copy paper. Once again, if you have a mixed media paper, it's good, use it. For these first practices, since we are using dry media like a pencil, crayons, markers, a regular good quality copy paper is more than enough. In the future, I will be more like a specific, but remember, my video and my practices are meant to be approachable, affordable, and just focus on content. I just want you to understand what we are doing and understand the element of lines specifically. So we have this space available, and this time we're going to use the whole paper. We're going to try to do like a nice simple landscape that feature a background, which is the farther, like the top of your space over here. Something in the middle ground, which is also where the line of the horizon, which is the division between the ground and the sky, is in the middle ground, and then something a little bigger because it's closer to our eyes in the foreground, which is the bottom. So with this practice, we start to also introduce how to draw an effective landscape, but we will go back on landscape way in the future. So first thing that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna set for myself the line of the horizon. These lines could be really, really straight, but could also be a type of organic lines that go a little bit up and down. And it is good for me to just divide my space. Mostly if you are a beginner student, you want to divide your space within the foreground, middle ground, and the background. Okay, now here in the middle ground, I can add, for example, some details there, I don't know, let's do some bushes, for example. Nothing fancy. Pretend that you are drawing a cloud. Pretend that you're kind of doing a cloud, and we are using actually pencil, like, sorry, we are using actually sort of a soft lines, right? Then we do it again, changing a little bit the shape. And maybe here we want to add a little tree just to break a little bit our design and make it more interesting. I'm gonna go as low as I can so you can see what I'm doing. If we can kind of refocus a little better. Sorry, there we go, much better. And sometimes I'm so focused on what I'm doing on the paper that then I lose focus of all the technology side. This is why I'm not a technological person. Well, I'm an artist and an art teacher, so that is a reason why. But it's okay, because as I say, the quality of the video will get better and better with the time, but in the meanwhile, I'm very sure about the content, and the quality of these videos that I'm making, it's really, really good quality. Like, the content that I'm delivering is really well thought and well done. So here you see, I just created a few branches for my students, like the beginner. Go very slow, control your hand. And then here you can add just the outlines. Remember, we don't do every single leaves. We just do the outlines of the things that we want, the details that we want to add. Pretend that you're doing clouds once again. I always like to do example that can kind of make sense for our students. Like, pretend that you're tracing a rainbow, pretend that you're tracing a cloud, and then you will have exactly the shape that you want. So this is a nice tree. I think that I'm gonna add, I don't know, maybe a couple of rocks. I'm getting inspired by my natural landscape that I live in. Well, we don't really have so many of this type of tree here in Utah, but I lived in many, many places. So I kind of combining together all the landscape that I'm used to live in and be surrounded by. Feel free to change and add something. Now, very in the back, like in the background, is where very far away things are, and I'm gonna trace the outline for very tall, beautiful mountains. And yes, here in Utah, northern Utah, we have many of those. I need to make sure that I also go behind the tree, and I go all the way back, but I also want to add another one going in this direction with a beautiful peak showing up and down. Remember, friends, it is very important, mostly for my beginner. Let me see if I can find another piece of paper. We want to make sure that when we do the mountains, that we don't do just up and down, up and down. This looks more like a pyramid. Mountains usually, since are natural and organic shape, they don't have a geometrical lines like this one. So make sure that you kind of let your pencil move around to create something a little more natural, right? To do this, you need to have to go slow and control your hand, as I like to tell my students. So finally here, we can have maybe a little bit like a part of a body of water. Let's pretend that we have a little pond, or maybe the last part of a lake. I don't know, some kind of grass around. We'll see what this will become. And here we can add a couple of more like a top of the trees or bushes, and since they are in the foreground, which is the bottom of your page, this will be much bigger than the one in the middle ground, because we are going from closer to very far away, so closer and farther apart, right? So we're gonna do something like that, and we have our landscape. If you want to add the sun, why not? We're not doing a realistic landscape, so you can add the sun. And we don't do the rays, like, we don't trace anything. Just make it as a circle. It will give you like a more flexibility for when it's time to color. Finally, in the mountains, since we might want to have two different colors, darker and lighter, we can kind of create. So this should be the light is hitting this way. So probably this one is going to be the lighter side of the mountain. And we keep this for like the darker, and here once again we're gonna have maybe a lighter side, and this one is gonna be darker. Perfect. And now we switch and we start to use the colors, but we don't color it traditionally. We color adding pattern and lines, broken lines, swirl lines, straight lines, diagonal lines, and so on and on. For this practice, I think that I will use my markers. I'm using a fine Sharpies. Once again, if you do not have Sharpies, you can use any type of markers that you have available. If you have thin, the fine, extra fine tip, better. If you have regular tips, go for it. Once again, use what you have available, and don't stress yourself or don't stress your parents if you don't have exactly the same supplies. I will add the list of the supplies that I'm using in the descriptions. However, always remember that we can create art with really anything. So let me start, and this I want to be very creative, and I'm gonna start actually with the background and with the mountain. So instead to go on and do this type of coloring, I will actually use the different type of lines. In this one, I'm gonna go with one of the favorite lines from my student, the scribbles. You see, you kind of scribble inside the space that you set for yourself using the pencil that we just used to create this design, and you have fun and you do your scribbles. Remember, we have to do some scribble also between the tree branches and behind, right? Because our background fill the whole space behind the details that we put in the middle ground. So make sure that you take your time to observe what you did and do it carefully. I'm gonna see if we can I can find some nice music that I want to practice with. When we don't have to do something like traditional or realistic that will take really a lot of focus, and we're gonna do this in future, we're gonna do something like that in the future, but remember, we are building up skills, we are building up foundation. So I want you to become an expert of different type of lines. I want you to know exactly what a pattern is, which is a repetition of something, right? Which gives us an idea of an optical illusion of movement, or like in this case, an optical illusion of texture. This is what we call implied texture, which means a fake texture, because the paper, if you touch it, has the same texture. However, if you look at this part might look a little rough, right? That gives the optical illusion of something with a specific texture. And as I was saying, I really want you to do this practice the way I'm doing them, because believe me, they will help you to build your skills, and they will help you to be very, very expert in every element of art, and you will feel so confident then in practicing other projects and more complicated. So here I will actually switch, and I want to do a gentle pattern. So what I will do, I want to have like an optical illusion of a gentler type of texture. So what I'm doing, I like just tiny little strokes, you know, in the directions, like I like it that the sun is reflecting its light on the top of these mountains, and I want to feel this space like that. Once again, you can do fast, or you can do this type of strokes very slow. It's really up to you, your level of the skill, if you're a beginner or an intermediate, and if it comes easy to you to do them quickly without compromising the quality of the lines, the tiny little strokes, or you have to do them slow. Just in case you want to slow down, remember, you can pause the video, finish these sections, and then play it again, so we all go together. This is what I picture in my mind, that we are all going together. Remember to fill the spaces, if you have any, behind the tree. And I think that I'm gonna use the same color and the same pattern also for these sides of the mountain. Now I want to use a beautiful yellow for the sun, and I think that I will start from the center like with circles, and I will use the smooth nice lines that we use in our first project to create circles that go all the way from tiny all the way to big until I feel completely the space in my sun. Once again, you can copy my patterns, so the type of lines that I'm using and also the color, or you can make your own decisions and try something different type of lines, or maybe even a different color for the sun. There are no rules, actually. Remember that we are doing an abstract type of landscape, a landscape that doesn't really look like this in nature, but we are using this practice to become better in different type of lines and know this element better and better. It's great for the trunk of my tree, and in this one I will kind of try to use organic line to follow basically the shape of the tree. I will start from the tip of the branches and then I will bring those lines all the way down. Tracing over and over lines makes your skill so much better, mostly if you're a young student, or if you're a beginner. It really makes a huge difference. The more time you spend exercising yourself and using this type of practice to work specifically on one element of art at a time will make a huge difference and will build a very strong foundation for you, and then you will be able to really do amazing artworks, really understand what you're doing. And now I'm gonna do some green for the bushes. I still need to think about the colors that I want here, so I go ahead and I color everything else and see what is the color that will work like at the very end. I'm using a straight diagonal lines. And remember, friends, don't use a ruler for this exercise. It's not like I want you to really do these lines freehand. They do not have to be perfect. It doesn't matter. Remember that these are practices. Of course, you want something beautiful at the end, but remember that the main reason is to practice. And if we always use a ruler or some tools that help us, we don't really develop our motor skills 100%. Of course, it is important to know how to use the rulers, and in the future, some practice we will use it. However, let's stay focused on a freehand practice. And if you are like an adult and you just want to do this practice with me because you benefit from my videos and you like them, just, use this moment to focus on your fine motor skills, coordination, brain, hand, relax and have fun. This is an extremely good practice. And now I'm probably going to use a different type of green to do the other one, and I'm going to go opposite way. So I will use the same type of lines, just going in a diagonal in opposite directions. And we see what happens. If you need to go slower than I'm going, please feel free to do so. You can always pause the video. We don't have to finish at the same time. I think that I decided that I want to go with red. Let me see. Probably dark orange. And I'm going to use the same scribble type of lines. So fun. I bet that so many kids are so happy now that they are finally able to scribble finally, because usually in school we say, remember, not scribble scrabble, we want to do something very nice and neat. When they write and they learn how to write, of course, do not scribble. And now let's scribble, guys. You see, in life there is a time and a moment really for everything. Today we're gonna scribble a lot. Which is so relaxing, actually. It's like I'm releasing all my stress. Try your best to stay within the spaces that you define during the drawing moment, the drawing time, but if by accident you go outside, it's not a big deal. Remember, like Bob Ross used to say, they are not mistakes, just lucky accidents, because they can open new possibilities and new opportunities, and we need to find a way to be flexible and fix that little surprise that happened on our paper, which is such a great life lesson. If your hands get tired, feel free to stop. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Do some movement. Ooh, and back on. Such a good physical exercise also for our hands. Hands have muscles, so we are exercising the muscles that we have in our hands. remember to also focus on your breathing during this practice. So let's take advantage and combine different things together, right? We are learning about elements of art, we are doing something creative, but we also want to make sure that we are present in this very moment into our body, and the breath is what makes us alive, right? Keeps us alive and present. So in and out from the nose, gently, deeply. Let me see. I might want to do something kind of original here. Let me see, what can I combine? I'm gonna do some like a swirl and scribble from the tip, the top of the branches and the leaves, and then I'm gonna do something probably different for the rest of the tree. I might want to mix it with a tiny little different colors on top. Like I sometimes with markers we cannot really shade in the traditional way, but that doesn't stop us to do some overlapping and create a little value, so dark and lighter, that we will talk in the future, because value is a very important element. But now I want you to focus on what we are doing here. Now we switch to a darker pink. I know that usually trees are green, but this is not a real landscape, right? It's not a realistic landscape, so I want to feel free to play around with colors and see what happens. So I'm using two different tones, a darker and a lighter tones of a pink. To feel the space here. Maybe I want to do also some like diagonal lines on top to intensify the pattern and make it a little more interesting. Onto my rocks. Let's see. I think that I will do something similar to what I did to the tree. I just want almost the tree to be connected with the rock, and so I'm using the same color and the same type of line. Very natural, organic, and not perfect at all. I'm just like filling the space until it's all done. Over here I want to switch to different colors, a little darker, and I will go with lines. Don't worry now about the outline. We're gonna outline everything in black at the very end. I just want you to focus now on the way that you're feeling the spaces inside. And this one is gonna be instead red, the same type of lines that this first rock has. Down to the water. I'm gonna move the paper like that just because it's more convenient, and I think that I will do strokes. So remember that at home you can speed up the video, mostly if you watch all of it and then you practice at your own convenience. If you're practicing together with me, you know, let the video just at a regular speed. I personally not doing this type of editing, as I told and I explained during the introduction, because to me it has to look like I'm in the class with you. This is what I want to feel, and this is what I am very good in doing. So, and this is what makes me happy. So I'm going to really record this video without barely any editing at all. I apologize still for the low quality. I'm waiting for a new computer to come. This, my baby, as I call my computer, served me very well for the past 7-8 years, so it is time to say goodbye. But sometimes if we wait to have everything perfect, all the best and the latest technology in order to start, we might never start, right? Mostly when you have a family, there are so many things that come before, you know, and sometimes like you know, there are like a challenge and things that you really need to take care of before everything else. And I just wanted to start because many parents and many students told me to do so. They asked me, please, Miss B, like, we really miss you, or we want something for our kids to do that is, you know, that has some good content and not just copying someone else doing art. But just I try to understand the element and the principle of art and design, and to really personalize the practice and improve your skills. And so here I am. This is why, as I say, the quality is still not as I wanted, but it will get better. But the content is really, really what makes me happy and proud about this video. Here I use a couple of blue to create this nice movement in the water, kind of add the darker blue here and there where I find space between the lighter blue that I set at the very beginning. My beautiful. Now these I want it to look like sort of burnt grass, so or dirt, rock, something like that. I don't know. I think I'm gonna do some scribbles here. then here. Oh, we have a sort of a lullaby in the piano, definitely relaxing. Oh, it reminds me of my childhood. Here I'm doing some zigzag and kind of changing the direction of the zigzag according to the shape and the space that I'm filling in. Nice. Now on to different green. And this time I just want to do the lines. If you need to go slow when you do your lines, go slower. Mostly pay attention when you arrive like at the edge of a shape that you need to kind of modify the lines in order to fill the space. I'm gonna actually do some cross hatching. This is how we call this technique. We are gonna go back on different techniques to color and add values. Now don't worry about it, just spontaneously fill the space, focusing on the quality of your lines and the different type of lines that you can create. Just slightly different. I want to go back on top of this, doing always a zigzag but in an opposite way for the first zigzag that I created. Zigzag, 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 zigzag. How relaxing it's doing zigzag. And now we have the foreground and the sky. Sky, I want something nice and soft, because you know it's not a sun, well, it's sun setting, but I use a very warm colors here for the mountains, mostly here, and I want to just contrast and balance it with something like a little on the colder side. And this is a big space to fill, so take your time, and this is such a great exercise for you to coordinate your hands to kind of trace lines across the paper. If you want to go for the same pattern that I'm using, remember that you can even use something different. You can do scribbles in the sky, you can do strokes in the sky like a stapling, you can do cross-hatching in the sky, okay? So you can reuse some other type of lines that you used before in this design, or maybe in the video number 2, on the video number 1 that we did together. Actually, I think that I'm gonna reuse a technique that we use on the first video to fulfill the ground in my landscape. And you see my lines are neat, but they are not perfect. Sometimes they go close to each other, sometimes a little farther apart. It is what makes the design beautiful. So do not stress yourself if your lines are not perfect first, because you know there is no such a thing as perfect. And second, do we really want to look for perfections? Perfection sometimes can be so boring, right? We want to look for something original, and most of all that makes you feel good while you create it. That is the priority number 1, that you're feeling good mentally and physically when you create this project, and also you're learning, priority number 2. If you're using the same technique that I am, careful when you go close to the mountains. You don't want to overlap, you don't want to go over so maybe you can work one little area at a time. And if you want them to be close to each other, you can always go back and add another line between the previous two. Remember, friends, if you have a little space between the trees that it's part of the sky and the background, you will have to fill with the same color and pattern. This is definitely a little longer and more intense practice compared to the previous two. And this is exactly what happens when we are in school, right? We start with baby steps and we learn something about a new topic, in this case lines, and we do a couple of shorter and easier practices to warm up, and then we use what we are learning. I am sorry that you can barely, oh, now you can see the colors. It's very, very, very light. It's like it's very delicate type of blue. So as I was saying, it makes perfect sense, right? Because you are kind of building foundation, scaffolding your knowledge, which means that we are adding bricks one by one. So smaller, simpler practice, and then we go into something a little more complicated and intense when we combine together what we learned before. Love it. And now on to my ground. Let me see. I think I want something kind of neutral that kind of bring together this palette that I decided to use. It's difficult sometimes to find the right color, but I'm going with the same color that I use for this mountain. And remember, if you did the first practice with me about line, I'm using the same type of smooth rounded lines to create the pattern that will give at the end an optical illusion of movement. And now I'm gonna switch a little bit direction. There you go. I really love this pattern. I would do it forever. Once again, take your time. You do not have to go as fast as I'm going. Mostly if you are a beginner or a young artist, take your time. Remember to breathe in and out. Take your break. The practice could be intense, so take every break that you feel like. Pause the video, stop working, shake your hands, stand up from the chair. Enjoy the practice, don't force yourself. Give yourself the necessary breaks and time that you need. I'm just picturing in my mind, in this moment, I'm picturing all of you, beautiful humans, just practicing with me and creating your own beautiful and original landscape. Enjoying this activity all together and create this beautiful positive energy that we are releasing into the world. I know I'm a romantic, but I like to think, I love humans and humanity. Most of all, I really love children, kids in general. You are amazing, guys. You put so much good into the world. So I picture all of us in a huge art studio, practicing all together, working hard to get better and better in art, understanding the elements, sharpening our fine motor skills, and making something that makes us feel good and happy. And maybe at the end you will share with your family, with your friends, with the significant people in your life, and you will make them see what you created, and you can have a conversation about, and you can ask feedback. You can ask me feedback. Make sure that you subscribe so you can add the comment and ask any questions. If you are a child, you need to ask permissions from your parents or your guardians to be able to, subscribe and add comment. So let's have your parents involved, and let's have the parents supporting you if you need to ask me any question about our exercising and practice about art. And we did it. I am so in love with this landscape. So once you finish, you can decide, it's really up to you, if you want to outline, so basically going over the first lines that you trace with a pencil, with a black Sharpie or a black markers, or if you want to leave it like that. I actually think that I'm gonna leave mine like that because I find it so very beautiful, and I think that the color palette work very, very well. Now I will switch from the frontal camera just to say goodbye. This was a very long practice. Please take a time once you finish to observe the practice. If you want to write notes on the back, feel free to do so with a pencil. Maybe you can list the different type of lines that you were able to use to fill the space. How does this piece make you feel? And reflect on why did you make some decisions about lines. If you copy just what I did, I hope you really enjoy this practice. It was fantastic to practice together. Guys, this was a lot of work, right? The third and final practice, focusing on lines, is now over, and this is why, of course, it was more intense, longer, and more complicated. Remember, these are video. play them, pause them, play them again. You can divide this practice in two different parts, mostly if you're a child, a beginner, a young student, or maybe a senior. It's like a pretty intense to work for 45 minutes on one single piece, so feel free to pause it and then maybe work on it the day after. I wish I could see all of your pieces because I'm sure that you all created fantastic landscape. Once again, thank you so much for practicing with me. Make sure to like this video, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to spread the word around this page. So we're gonna help you to grow, and leave a comment and let me know if you have any question. Ciao a tutti, bye.